This is Brian from the soon-to-be champion Skybusters, and you are listening to Josh and Gar on the Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix on Spotify.
Thank you, Brian. It is November 9th, 2021. It's already getting dark out on a Tuesday evening, Josh, at 5 p.m. I don't like this. I don't like it one bit. It's podcast number 87, the 17th episode of the 4th season. I'm excited for it, but today's feeling a bit rocky, Josh. You sounded a little bit rocky before we even got on out of here, so let's let Walters rock us in today.
Welcome to the Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix with your lovely hostesses, Garlic Johnson.
We're going to need to take a break here while I change my pants.
And Josh Mitchell.
Sitting here undefeated in everything I do, except fantasy football. No, I'm not allowed to handle crayons.
Not after last time.
Not after last time.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Garlic and Josh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hidden Oaks Overdose Football Fix podcast. I'm one of your lovely hostesses, the Garlic Johnson. We are joined, as always, by your other lovely hostess, the Joshua Mitchell. Josh, say hi to them folks out there, pal.
Hi, folks.
Nailed it. If you want to chat with us and you want to get our takes 24/7, 365, you can join our Discord server. You can chat with us whenever you want. If you want to leave us voicemails, whether you're a senior correspondent or a fan of the question, or you got your Fave Favre, you can do it at anchor.fm/hoodpod, or kick it old school with an email. hiddenoaksoverdose@gmail.com is where you can find our email inbox. You can also see stuff about our league at hiddenoaksoverdose.com. Josh, did you know that the segment start times are down in the description below?
What?
I know, it's crazy. And did you also know that at Levi Oki Illustration is responsible for all the beautiful art that people have seen since our podcast started?
What?
I know, crazy shit's going on. So thank you at Levi Oki Illustration on Instagram for all the beautiful stuff you do for us. How we doing today, Josh?
Oh, we doing...
That good, huh? I mean, did you go see Eternals like I did over the weekend, or because that was really good?
I usually just wait for those types of B-rated movies to make it to Disney Plus or something.
All right, that's a little disrespectful. What about, did you read the book titled Attached by Dr. Amir Levine? Did you read that book? Because that was a really good book I read in the last week.
No, I did not. So, like I said last week, you said attached book. And I just, I was looking for the attachment, still looking for it. And so
you'll find it on Amazon. You have to search for it and buy it, and they'll bring it to your house.
Oh, I guess, yeah. Here's how I'm going to summarize how it's been going in the last 24, 36 hours.
Okay.
Yesterday morning, after waking up, feeding the young child, before pictures for newborns.
Straight from your bosom, of course. That's how you feed your child, right? Just for the fans at home, so they can get a visual, they can paint a mental picture. You're breastfeeding your child, right?
Yes. How else is he going to put hair on his chest? Come on now.
Just want to make sure. Sorry,
interrupting phone, huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, so woke up, did that. A little sleepy, no big deal. Got to get ready for the pictures myself, because apparently newborn photos requires parents to be in there. So I'm shaving. I got myself a straight edge razor because I like to be, manly. And with a beard as thick as mine, you go through 6 or 7 disposable razors on half your face. So I'm using the straight edge, and I get all my cheek done, get it all lined up nice and pretty, get the neck, do all that jazz. And then, you got to get underneath the nose just a little bit to kind of straighten that line up.
Yep.
It was at that point that the straight edge was not the right option, and I took a hunk out of the side of my nose, so I'm bleeding profusely.
Okay.
Right before the pictures start. So, I'm doing what I can with the paper towels. Turn to the liquid Band-Aid. I don't know if you've ever dunked your balls in hot sauce and then put icy hot all over it, but that's exactly what it felt like, the pain level, as I put that new skin onto that cut. So, great start to the day. Going around, realize I got to move everything downstairs from my office. So when I do return to work, I have space that's not upstairs in the way of feedings and babies and whatnot. And so I'm moving things downstairs, and I go to move the dog kennel. For those of you who don't know, I have a toenail on my left big toe that might not be classified as a toenail by doctors anymore, just because of the amount of times that it's been stepped on in football, broken off. I actually had nothing there for a while. And so it's kind of back, but when I lifted the kennel up, it just so happened to like stub it, but not the toe, it just stubbed the nail itself. And I looked down and it instantly looked like I dunked my foot in the same hot sauce that you dunked your balls in, because it was just blood. And so to add to the turd sandwich of my day, I go and I sit down and I'm like, oh, I might actually have a chance to win in Dynasty. And then the Bears bared and the Steelers steelered, and needless to say, I'm wishing I stubbed all 10 of my toes that hard, because maybe I would have bled out.
Oh, poor baby Josh. Sounds like you're having a real rough go of it, huh?
Yeah, how's your day, Gar?
Oh, my day is good, man. Like I said, I mean, I saw Eternals on Saturday. I finished up the Attached book on Sunday. I mean, I've been having a time. I'm not dunking my balls in hot sauce, but, I think these people are tired of hearing you yip and yap, Josh. How about you say, or what do you say we keep her moving?
Yeah.
All right, Josh. Well, you know what time it is. It's time for the old FanTASTY Zone. We're already a minute late over what we usually do. Who brings us the FanTASTY Zone, Josh?
That would be the Skybusters, third in the space race, currently behind Mr. Musk and Hot Wheels, actually. And so, Skybusters, thank you for bringing us the Hidden Oaks original FanTASTY Zone. Gar, who is your food sponsor for this week?
I've got a cup full of Honey Nut Cheerios. So I don't know. Yeah, you can hear that. I got Honey Nut Cheerios in a cup because I can eat them more easily without getting my fingers dirtied on the podcast. Then I've got, you know what, Josh? Oh, that was a steamy one. That's an Arnie. What about you, Josh? You were snacking pre-pod when we were doing our mic checks and whatnot. Did your snack make it this far?
It did not. Not unless I want to snort the remaining season of my jalapeno ranch pretzel twists, the Snyder's ones. And it probably would just make sense if I did do all that for the pain, just to go on with what my week and my Sunday and Monday of fantasy went. So I might as well just snort that. And I also have about 6 cups of rum with about half an ounce of Coke, because drowning.
Seems like a lot of Coke, buddy.
Yeah, well, I slipped and poured too much.
It'll happen to the best of us. Well, Josh, no senior correspondence this week, no Brian emails this week, so we can go straight to the stuff from the Discord. I didn't really, promote any Gridiron Gossip discussions this week. I threw one out, what was it, yesterday? I think it was last night. I just asked people, week 9, so since it's not an even season anymore, we're over halfway through, but, pretty much at that halfway point, I was asking people who their Super Bowl favorite and their Super Bowl sleepers are. And do you remember what the people responded? Otherwise, I got them up in front of me here.
I think Al's went with the Bucks as his favorite for in the Super Bowl, and then a sleeper was, I don't remember.
The Ravens.
Okay, yeah, the Ravens. And then I chimed in and I said that I think that I could honestly see it being one of those, like, how the hell are we going to sell this or market this? Because it'll be like the Rams and the Browns, or the Rams and the Bills. Obviously, the Bills, they'd have the whole 4 in a row. Are they going to be able to break that streak? But I don't know. I just feel like the Rams would be a hard time for the NFL to sell. It's not Mahomes Brady or Mahomes Rodgers or anything like that.
Sure. Yeah, and I will also say that Eric's said the Super Bowl he was glowing for. I don't know if it was his sleeper or his favorite, but he said Rams Bills as well. And then Brian, just because I feel like Brian would feel like a victim if we didn't acknowledge him, Brian said that his Super Bowl favorite is the one where the Steelers beat the Cowboys 1978 or so. So Brian wanted to be funny. Haha. I did chuckle last night. So those are the Super Bowl favorites and sleepers. What about you, Josh? So do you think it's going to be obscure like Rams and Browns? I guess those would probably be your sleepers. Who are your favorites then, just based on how the league's going so far, or the season, I should say?
Well, those aren't necessarily sleepers, but I would say that my favorite in the NFC is going to be probably the Rams. They got that solid defense, solid offense. They're pretty solid all around. And then the sleeper for the NFC is going to be the Packers. Everyone likes to say that they're downhill because Rodgers is a anti-vax Karen, but
Aaron Rodgers
is still. I mean, he's still the quarterback, and that defense showed out last week, even though it's a struggling offense. And All they got to do is shore up the special teams, which are just putting a whole new definition to special.
So I do have our 272s pulled up. So originally in your 272, you had Kansas City winning the Super Bowl against Minnesota. Obviously, this was at least half memes, but looks like you had the Rams losing in the NFC Championship game. So could you see still a KC Los Angeles Super Bowl, or is that far gone based on how KC's done so far?
I mean, I could still see it just because all it really takes is Mahomes to turn things around. That the defense is, it's not doing solid, but it's not as bad as everybody's saying. They're not, historically bad. But Aaron Rodgers has made it to the, NFC Championship game with similar defenses.
Okay. For what it's worth, in the 272, I had Kansas City beating Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl. I mean, it still looks like Tampa Bay could easily be in the Super Bowl. Right now, it's looking like the NFC Championship game is going to be Arizona and Tampa Bay. And the AFC Championship game right now, I don't know. Buffalo seems to be pretty set. Maybe Buffalo, Tennessee again. See another Buffalo, Tennessee matchup. Not again, obviously, in an AFC Championship game, but just seeing them play. So, yeah, I don't know. I think my Super Bowl favorite right now is going to have to be Buffalo. And then if I'm staying in the AFC, I think my Super Bowl sleeper is going to be the Chargers, Josh. People got to watch out for the Chargers. Maybe Thinkson. But that's my Super Bowl and my sleeper. Or my favorite to my sleeper, rather. That's probably enough, Josh. It looks like you, again, didn't do a massive poll. Josh, you're going to have to choose the podcast or your kid. What are we doing here?
I did one on the 4th. What are you talking about?
Oh, what was the poll?
I said, if Mike White keeps winning, would you keep him and go back to your rookie investment in Zach Wilson? And option A was Mike White feels right, and Zach Wilson pays the bills, son. And everyone says Zach Wilson. I guess I don't understand why they'd go with the guy who's losing. Mike White is, if he wins, I would think keep him going. But what do I know?
I mean, didn't Peyton Manning lose a whole lot his first year? Throw a bunch of picks and stuff.
Some say he set the record for picks as a freshman or rookie.
Okay, well, so should the fans expect another midweek poll, or
maybe? Yeah, I like to keep them on their toes. Keep them engaged throughout the week instead of just on Thursday, Sunday, Monday.
All right. Well, fans, if you want to stay engaged, keep an eye on Josh's massive poll. Thank you, Skybusters, for bringing us the FanTASTY Zone. We're going to go ahead and keep things moving here. We got Gar's Grinder real quick. And Josh, you kind of already alluded to it before, but I just want to recognize kind of 3 grinders, all from the Monday Night Football game last night. So, Josh, you were up, 15, 20 points in Dynasty over Jalen Swanson? Was that about it going into Monday night?
Yep.
And so Freiermuth comes down. I don't remember his exact stat line, but I know he had at least 1 touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns. But Freiermuth got in there nice and close. Then Darnell Mooney gets that little shake and bake touchdown in there. And then the Bears defense, they come through with a nice little touchdown. There were some sacks in there as well. And so ultimately, you were projected to win by 5-10. And then thanks to Freiermuth, Mooney, and the Bears D, you are now 2-7 in the Dynasty League as the reigning champ, and I think you quit the league. Is that correct?
Yeah. Not only did I quit the league, but I disbanded the league, so there's no proof that it ever existed.
Well, those are Guards Grinders this week: Freiermuth, Mooney, and the Bears D. Josh, what about the podcast play along? How'd you do in that last week? Did you do any better?
No. I didn't do bad, but I didn't do good. I think I was middle of the pack, 10, 11, somewhere in there. It looks like we have Go Sports on top with 130.76, followed by Cody at 120.54, and then the Turtibus at 115.88.
Josh, we have had a woman win 3 weeks in a row. Are we done as men? Are men canceled? Are men no longer needed?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's the day of the Karen.
I also posted, so shout out to Brianna for winning that contest. I know, Josh, for me, personally, I invested heavily in the Packers offense. I did Jordan Love, I did Devontae Adams, and I did Aaron Jones in my FanDuel. And I came in 14th, so what the hell? I thought the Packers are supposed to be good.
Well, they're the best team in the NFL, most historic franchise of all time. It's you. It's not them, it's you.
Okay, well, I don't fucking like it. I think we had our very first week, maybe since the very beginning, that we didn't have a standings change at all. We still have David in first with 742. We got Elena holding her second spot with the 690, and then Hammer himself at 688. So there's absolutely no moving, at least in the top three standings. I'm sure there was movement beneath that, of course, but the three people that are currently in the money, David for 150, Elena for 40, and then Hammer for his 10 back. They did not move after last week's contest. And I know I saw David. I was scrolling through the contest results. If I had like 60 or 80 points, I probably had like maybe 75, 80 points. David had like 68. So that guy must be taking some big swings as well. So I don't know what that tells you about how you want to try and beat David, but I saw him at the very bottom of the standings this last week. Josh, we try and pick a stud or a dud every week for the FanDuel and then also just fantasy in general. Brian said both our players last week were locks in his lineup because we were just talking about how smart we are and how good these players are. How'd your guy do, first of all?
Not good. Turns out that I looked at the wrong player on my opponent's roster and thought that Zach Moss would do good. He didn't do so well. He only did 0.6 times his value. I don't have the numbers pulled up right now because I'm working on something else. But yeah, it turns out I should have put someone like Darnell Mooney or Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah, or maybe you should have played the Bears defense. I mean, what were we thinking? For a stud last week, I said Brandon Cooks. I thought with Tyrod Taylor back, I thought with Miami really being a shaky team this year, I was like, oh boy, here we go. Brandon Cooks is going to start lighting things up again because him and Tyrod had a real connection. But that was an ugly-ass game. Houston didn't do a whole lot of anything. Tyrod had a really bad interception on the sideline. Brian, if you would have played Brandon Cooks, a wide receiver out of Houston, for $6,800, you only would have got a 1.3 times your value. He only scored 8.6 points, so that was not very good. But don't worry, Brian. I know you're subscribed. I know you do everything Josh and I say. So I got a stud for you this week, Brian. Are you ready? My stud for you this week, Brian, get ready to put him in your lineup right now. I'm going full, I hate myself and I hate this state. We're going for a stud quarterback. Don't do those too often because quarterbacks are generally a little spendier, but you're going to get your money's worth this week. I'm saying Justin Herbert, quarterback for the Los Angeles Chargers, is about to have the greatest game of his career playing at home against Minnesota. Justin Herbert's probably about to put up 60 fantasy points. If he's not in your lineup, Brian, because the Minnesota Vikings stink, you're making a mistake. Justin Herbert, $80 this week, but I'm saying he's a stud. Josh, who you got?
I have a little human being known as Delvin Cook, who's the running back in Minnesota. He's 8,500, and he's at the Los Angeles Chargers. I have a feeling that Mike Zimmer is just going to absolutely make sure that Cook gets the ball and go back to Zimball. And so I don't know. I just did it because it was easy to look at players who were playing against the guy that Gar picked as a stud.
Okay, so there you go, Brian.
And also, T has Cook in the Dynasty League, and I'm going against T. Fine. The real reason comes out.
Well, there you go, Brian. I mean, if you were watching Monday night, if you were watching our messages go back and forth, you know that Josh is going to lose in Dynasty no matter what. So whoever Josh is playing against in Dynasty, that should be your entire FanDuel lineup if possible. So that's real science right there. You can't fuck that up. Josh, at 2-7, do you still keep trying in the Dynasty League? Do you still keep going for it as the reigning champ?
So I did the math, and the math says I could definitely still make the playoffs. I just have to have a couple cookies crumble my way. And I think that the tree doesn't fall too far from the apple, if you know what I'm saying.
All right. Amen, brother. Well, Josh, down but not out. Josh, we got
and I mean, what's the difference? You already mentioned why not tank, join you on the dark side? Mm-hmm. What's the difference between me trying and still losing every week as opposed to, me tanking in general? It's the same thing. Now I can say I'm top 3 points for, but I'm also in the top for points against. I'm 2-11 after the next couple of weeks.
Remember, Josh, I have the most points against, not you, pal. It doesn't matter how bad your season is. I still have more points against. And the reason you tank is so you can lock in that number 2 overall pick. Jesse absolutely stinks. If you win 1 or 2 more games, Jesse's going to slide into that number 2 pick. I'm just saying. You got to watch out for Jesse. He's a greasy one. But let's keep her moving, Josh. The fans know what they want to hear, and it's not this. You got a quick hitter for us, Josh? You got a joker, perhaps?
Oh yeah, my joker of the week is going to be the three Bs. We all know them as the Bills getting their butt kicked by the Jags, 6-9. The boys getting their butt kicked by whoever. I don't know the final score because I don't care. And then backups. We're talking backups. Jordan Love, who looked a little shaky. Backups to Mike White, and then just backups. Speaking of backups, Bills and boys, Gar, did you happen to have any of those types of players in a specific guillotine league?
Josh, this feels like a personal attack. My neck is feeling a little sore after I got the guillotine taken to me last night. Al, I don't know if you've heard the news yet. I don't know if anyone keeps you going, keeps you informed on the guillotine, but I finally did get chopped. Aaron Jones and Kyle Pitts after week 1 got me this far. I really don't think I would have made it to week 9 without Aaron Jones and Kyle Pitts, so I tried to do you proud, Al, but I did get the old chop after week 9. I just, literally everyone on my team did terrible. So Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Aaron Jones, Kyle Pitts, all my studs were in the single digits, I believe. So you're not gonna survive if that's the case. So go fuck yourself, Josh. How about some Hidden Oaks highlights, huh? Because that was a Hidden Oaks low light, and I will not stand for it.
Yeah. Moving on to the Hidden Oaks highlights for Week 9, we have glorious TDs. Team with the most touchdowns on offense was the side bet. Just so happens to go to my lovely wife, Nikita, who had 7.
Yeah, Josh, I mean, I love your lovely wife. Nikita's a great person. I do genuinely love her, as a person and also for taking care of you and dealing with you all these years. I will say this side bet bullshit's I'm about at my wit's end, Josh. Since we're kind of doing a little standings check-in, a little leagues check-in this week, I was updating the financial spreadsheet that I've got going for the league. If Jesse wins one of the next side bets before I do, every active player in the league will have 2 side bets before I have 1. Jeremy has 2 by now. Eric has 2 by now. It's a bunch of bullshit. So if Jesse wins one of these next side bets before I ever win a side bet, it's going to be absolute bullshit, and I'm canceling the entire league. So there's been 48 side bets since they started. I've never won a single one, and it's kind of fucked up. That's all I got to say. But we can keep moving. Josh, your wife scored 7 touchdowns. She won the $5 side bet. On top of that, she was the blowout of the week. T. Mitchell over Hot Tub Time Machine, 162.1 to 116.35. That's a 45.75 difference. Does your wife feel good about herself after absolutely destroying Willie like that? You know, Willie's a father too. I mean, I figured you parent types have to stick together, but your wife absolutely obliterated Wilbert.
Yeah, she made a comment or two about taking Wilbert and holding him under that hot tub time machine until the kicking stopped, but I didn't really take too much thought on that. Actually, she thought she was going to lose going into Sunday afternoon, I believe, because Chubb had a pretty big game, but then the afternoon game started, and wowza, yeah, she had a couple guys on the highs for the high lows.
She turned it on. All right, well, Josh, what about a nail biter? Some of our games can get pretty close. Some of them, some weeks we don't have games that are too close. What was the nail biter last week, Josh?
The nail biterist was Jamie's Obi-Wan Mahomes over T. That's hilarious. 108.1 to 96.5, which was a 11.6 point differential.
Yeah. So
if we want to just, did you have comments about how bad your cousin is at sports?
I mean, he's not great. I was just going to say that wasn't too close of a nail biter, but it's the closest we had. But Jamie, she's not going away quietly. I know there was maybe some jokes about her team in the beginning of the year. Maybe her draft wasn't so good. I know she's 4-5 right now, but she's right in that conversation for the playoffs. So don't count these women out yet. And Nikita, I mean, she can't be stopped. We'll talk about that more in a little bit.
So you're saying a 4-5 team has the opportunity to make the playoffs?
My 4-5 team does. Jamie's 4-5 team does, but not yours or T's. No chance.
Okay, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. I'm looking at my roster. I might actually have to give a couple wins back.
You probably should.
Yep. Moving on to the lows and the highs. We've got still no totals because math is hard. But in the quarterbacks, we have It's not me this time. It's Jesse, who started Mike White. Idiot. Should have known he'd get injured after one quarter with 8.75. I was definitely the second lowest with a guy who played the full game. Running backs, Chase Edmonds, Boston Scott, put up 0.3 and 4 points respectively. Wide receivers, we had a couple with zeros. Brian Edwards and Nelson Aguilar. Those two stink. Dallas Goedert was the lowest scoring tight end with 7.3, which is a decent score for a tight end, I guess, unless you play in a PPR league like us. Flex, we have McCole Hardman with 5. And then if you look at the defenses, not the worst scoring defenses in the world, but why they'd play them, Cincinnati and San Francisco, with a -2. They were the lowest. And then Greg Zerlin was 0 because Cowboys stink.
Josh, do you think Jesse's ears were ringing right before we started this? Because Jesse got into the podcast lobby here late. Shout out to Jesse. Thanks for joining us live. But right before we started talking about these highs and lows, Jesse gets in here, and then 4 of Jesse's players makes this lows list. Do you think, are you personally attacking Jesse?
No, if I was personally attacking him, that would be mean. But he attacked himself on this one. He left the tractor running, forgot to get gas money, and now he's stuck at high V.
You hate to see it. All right, what about some highs?
Moving on to the highs, we got Mr. Herbert himself with 35.2 at quarterback. James Conner with 40.3 at running back. Jonathan Taylor, 34 with running back. Wide receivers, we had Keen Allen and then Marquise Brown or Hollywood Brown with 22.4 and 20.6 respectively. Tight ends, the aforementioned Pat Fryermish with 21.3. Tim Patrick in the flex with 18.5. Defense, New England with 19 points. And then kickers, we'll round off the highs with someone gay at 12 points.
Gosh, it's 2020, pal. You can't be saying that. And I'm eyeing up this lineup here. Of all the highs lineups we've had, I think this one's the most doable. You'd take Jonathan Taylor there in the first round, probably Keenan Allen in the second, Herbert or Connor in the third, then Hollywood Brown, and then I think this lineup's pretty dang doable, honestly.
I would think that. I think Nikita took Herbert in the third or the fourth. So Herbert in the third, and then I think Connor would even be like a fourth or a fifth.
Probably.
You might be able to get No, this lineup is definitely one of the ones that are most doable in my eyes. And I think, without doing just the rough math in my head, I think it's like 770,000 points.
No, I'm doing the math right now as well. So we got 70 there, then we're up to 110, then we're at 130, 150, 170, we'll call it 174. We're definitely cracking 200 here. What is that, about 220-ish, I think, based on the numbers? That's pretty good.
We should probably just average our 2 guesses out because we're both not mathematicians.
Right.
But yeah, you have a note about talking about the standings and then screwing Jeremy.
Yeah, well, we're about halfway through the league here, the league year. So I figured, let's talk about the standings again. And I wrote "fuck Jeremy" in all caps because Jeremy's 9-0. I don't know how Jeremy's doing it. Jeremy was in the playoffs last year. He was not to be reckoned with. He made the Final Four, if I do recall. But this fucking guy is 9-0. So it's kind of bullshit. Nikita though is in second at 7-2. She's all alone. We got Brian and Jesse, 2 of our live listeners right now, are third and fourth respectively at 6-3. Henry gonna give it to you and go Joe Burrow are 5-4. They take fifth and sixth. Then we've got a slew of these 4 and 5 teams we were mentioning earlier. That's hilarious. Obi-Wan Mahomey, the Alan Parsons Project, and Send Me Swiftly to the Mooney. We are all 4 and 5. I'm obviously gonna make the playoffs, and you guys are all gonna suck a big long one. Over the hill, Bradley.
So is this the same as last year when you refused to play the Hunger Games bit until like week 18 of the regular season?
Maybe. So Over the Hill and Straight Cash Homie are both 3 and 6. They make 11th and 12th. Hot Chub Time Machine is alone at 2 and 7. He's in 13th, and then last place in 14th is Catch 22. He's 1 and 8. I don't think he's technically eliminated yet. Maybe he is. I don't know, but. Hammer, you're obviously not listening to the podcast anymore. Josh and I have told you multiple times, change your team name and you'll get some more wins. If you just sit there at Catch 22 and just keep taking these L's and taking it across the face, you're going to be in last. So I don't know why won't Hammer update his team name?
I don't know, but that idiot doesn't even have 920 total points. What a bum.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about some points for and points against as well. Your wife, actually, Nikita, is in first place with points for. We won't go through the whole list, but she's in second place, which is the most points for, beating out Jeremy by about 18-ish there. Least points for, hammered that catch 22. He's just cracking 900. But you mentioned yourself, Josh, you have the second least points for at 924. So only 20 points separate you and 1 and 8 hammer there. Least points against, of course, it's going to be Jeremy. This guy's a fraud. He's 9-0, but it's because he has the least points against. It's a bunch of bullshit. Most points against goes to the Hot Chub Time Machine. Of course, you're going to see someone with a lot of points forward towards the bottom. He's not in last like Hammer, but he is in 13th instead. Looking at the streaks here, obviously Jeremy, if he's undefeated, he's going to be on a 9-game win streak. Brian is on a 4-game win streak. Currently in third place. Hot Chub Time Machine is a 6-game losing streak, unfortunately, and it's the Brothers Grimm for these two. Both Wilbert and Derek have the 2 worst losing streaks. Derek is only on a 4-game schneid, but these Schultzes are having a rough time these last couple weeks.
Do you have your Hunger Games gong ready? Because we do have somebody with a 0% chance to make the playoffs according to the ESPN app.
And yeah, I mean, that's never been wrong before. I don't have the music ready, but I do have that cannon ready. I just played it a second ago. I could play it.
Okay. Yeah, so we'd like to pay our respects to Catch 22, Andrew Hammer, who has left the building week 9 with a 1-8 record.
Man, I didn't realize we're already eliminating people. I could have scrambled to try to find the song, but I mean, Hammer's done so bad. I don't even think he deserves a Hunger Games song. So sorry, Hammer. But yeah, one last thing.
We just play our intro song again for Brian.
There you go. Looking at the moves here, interesting. We have some interesting. I don't know. I'd say newsworthy, noteworthy, whatever. Statistics coming from the moves category. In first place in moves with 45 fucking moves. I don't even know this many moves. That'd be 5 a week if my math adds up. Jeremy, the first place 9-0 guy, he's made 45 moves, so he's really grinding. Interestingly enough, though, the least amount of moves is your wife, Nikita. She's only made 4 moves the whole season, and she's in second place. So, I mean, you could, a lot of people argue your season's won with all these waiver wire, pickups and drops. Jeremy has proven that to be true. 45 fucking moves, first place, I don't know. But here comes your wife just to ruin everything, Josh. Only 4 moves in second place, 7-2 with the most points for. So, say what you want. Nikita drafted well, and she's sticking to her guns.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember back to our post-draft pod about everybody's grades, but I do remember Audio Al giving her a really bad grade and just saying her team's trash. But he, we're not going to talk about his Victoria's Secret team. But I thought that her team was decent, well-rounded. If I'm being honest, I thought her worst draft pick was James Conner, and he's actually, he's 11th ranked running back. So. He's not doing bad. That Herbert Eckler connection really helps, though, I think.
I'm sure that helps. And I was just going to say, James Conner's stonks just went up because then Chase Edmonds out with a high ankle sprain for a couple games. So, I mean, James Conner getting even more valuable somehow.
Yep. And then TJ Hawkinson, who I believe someone that Nikita reminds me that you were low on in the beginning of the season.
Oh, for sure I was.
He's doing pretty good. He's a 4th ranked tight end. I'm not saying much for tight ends, but I think her 4th round draft pick was Miles Sanders. No, 3rd round, because drafted 36th, and he has not played much at all this year. So she definitely drafted depth well.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I definitely remember mocking her in the draft for taking Miles Sanders, but, I mean, just goes to show it doesn't fucking matter. Nikita's still coming out on top. So those are kind of our standings check-ins. I mean, it looks like Jeremy and Nikita are a lock for the playoffs. Hammer already eliminated. If you're to believe ESPN, I don't want to have to do the math myself. So rough go for Hammer, but maybe next year. I did want to write down, just not really for this week, but just for the upcoming weeks, our trade deadline is November 22nd at noon. I don't know why it's on a Monday at noon, but that's what our trade deadline is. So for you Hidden Oakers listening, you've got just under 2 weeks to make any trades to, try and better your team for either the playoffs
Final
or
trade. Brian, on-air message, I will trade you my whole team for your whole team. End record.
I'm sure he'll go for that. The side bet next week is sack up. It'll be the defense with the most sacks. In case of a tie, it'll be the defense with the highest point total. And we've talked a lot. We talked enough. I don't know if we need to do blowout nail biter prediction because we still got today is a lengthier medical minute, and then we still got the Fave Favre as always. So blowout, we'll say I'll get blown out because I stink. Josh, you're gonna get blown out as well. Whoever wants to bite nails can bite nails this week. Let's keep her moving. We got the medical minute this week, Josh. And what do you think the topic should be after what's been going on? Last week specifically. What do you think we should talk about in the medical minute this week?
I think we should talk about the fraudulent medical claims that doctors are making.
Go ahead.
I think we need to focus on a more holistic approach. Like seances, healing crystals, candles, aromatherapy. All of these things that are proven to work according to diaries, journals, letters to the editor,
astrology.
Yeah, astrology. I believe it was written in ancient times in the sand before a big windstorm that doctors are frauds and healing crystals are the best.
There you go. That sounds about right. No, obviously, with everything that was going on last week, we knew it was going to come up at some point this week. But after Aaron Rodgers did what he did, there was a little bit of debate or discussion going on in the Discord as well. How about we listen to, instead of a bunch of absolute fucking stooges who don't know a thing about anything, let's listen to a fucking doctor. So this is going to be a longer medical minute. It's certainly not a minute, but I don't think there will need to be much discussion afterwards because we're listening to a doctor talk about medical stuff. So without further ado, let's hear what Dr. Jamie Hammer has to say about what Aaron Rodgers said last week.
Hey guys, this is Dr. Jamie Hammer with the most controversial episode of the Medical Minute yet. I'm here to talk about coronavirus and COVID vaccinations. As a doc, I have to say straight up front that I am pro-vaccination. I just received my third dose because I'm working in close contact with sick people all the time. I did have COVID back in March of 2020. I was asymptomatic, but Andrew, my husband, wasn't so lucky and was pretty sick. And he is now vaccinated as well. I'm super grateful for this because when I'm working in the intensive care unit, taking care of ventilated patients with coronavirus, people passing away all the time, and even just in the clinic, taking care of people who are experiencing pretty significant runny nose and fatigue who end up testing positive, I just never know what I could be bringing home from work. Garlic actually suggested that I bring up this topic specifically because of Aaron Rodgers and his most recent comments. Aaron Rodgers has been pretty openly opposed to vaccination for himself, and he's been very vocal that he's not anti-vax for everybody, but just thinks that everybody should make their own choices. He made a pretty controversial claim earlier in the season, claiming that he was immunized, although he didn't receive the vaccine. He's pretty upset about the protocols that were put in place for those that hadn't received their vaccine, including having to get coronavirus testing daily and wear masks, even in rooms full of vaccinated individuals. Well, I'm not going to get into the masking debate because my overall answer is very little side effect of masking. Protect yourself and your friends when you can. I am going to address a few of the claims he made regarding taking off-label medications such as ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine to treat coronavirus. I have seen so many people admitted to the hospital with side effects from taking hydroxychloroquine. Specifically, there have been case reports of people taking chloroquine tablets that they use for their fish tanks and getting very, very sick because they're trying to use these medications that are not clinically indicated. I strongly do not suggest any of these and think that you should go forward with either vaccination or some of the approved antibody therapies if you were to experience COVID and want to get treated in that fashion. Aaron Rodgers and his more holistic healers would have you believing that you should be taking ivermectin, which is quite often used as a lice treatment or an antiparasitic medicine, which they are studying, as it looks like there may be some protein binding benefits that are effective against the virus, but it's still very much in the works, and I would not suggest that at this time. So let's talk about what I do suggest, and that's the coronavirus vaccination. There are 3 different types of vaccines. The Moderna and the Pfizer are both mRNA vaccines, which you know that you get 2 doses of. The Moderna is 28 days apart. The Pfizer is also called Comirnaty, and it's 21 days apart. I'd get it just for the name. Also, the Pfizer is the most effective, shown to be 95% effective at stopping the spread of the virus. The other option is your Johnson & Johnson, which we know has had some turmoil around it regarding the clotting risk that they initially pulled it off the market of and then reinstated because they realized the clotting risk after COVID was more significant than the clotting risk of the vaccine itself. And that one has been shown to be 66% effective at stopping the spread of coronavirus and 93% reduced risk of hospitalization with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Why bother? The big thing is the risk of spreading it to others. We've seen that 30% of COVID cases in unvaccinated people are asymptomatic, and those folks can totally still transmit the virus. We've seen up to 10% transmission 10 days after people become sick when they're unvaccinated. In vaccinated individuals, it's unknown if asymptomatic people can transmit. We do know that even if you are vaccinated, if you have a symptomatic case of COVID, you can spread the virus, but for less time, which is why the recommendations for quarantine are slightly different for vaccinated versus unvaccinated individuals. Aside from social spread, the other reason that I would highly encourage people to get vaccinated is because if you receive your COVID vaccination, you're 11 times less likely to be in the hospital and 11 times less likely to die from coronavirus. I know that this is a pretty healthy population of people that I'm talking to here, but realize that you are at a high risk of spreading this to your aunts, your uncles, your dads, your grandpas, and these are the people that I really worry about and those that I take care of in the hospital. There are some adverse effects, like we talked about the Johnson & Johnson clotting risk, which has been addressed, less worrisome than COVID vaccine. But the other big one is the immediate adverse effects of getting fever, runny nose, chills, and a mild case of what feels like COVID after your vaccination. I think with supportive care, most people have really come out of this. I experienced some pretty intense side effects that lasted for about 24 hours, but I didn't require any hospitalization for COVID, so I'm still grateful for it. The reason that I really am encouraging my patients is because of all the adverse effects I've seen after people have COVID. The big thing is COVID long haulers with the loss of sense of smell, the fatigue, that weakness that lasts a very, very long time, but also things like pregnancy loss, gestational hypertension, blood clots. I just was taking care of an 18-year-old who has a bilateral pulmonary embolus, this huge blood clot in his lungs that's keeping him short of breath after he had pretty non-symptomatic COVID. And for these reasons, I strongly encourage you guys to think long and hard, look it up, and consider a vaccination if you haven't already. Don't let Aaron Rodgers be your guide. Listen to medical science and appreciate that a lot of this is still in the works and there are things that we don't know about vaccinations, but we didn't know a lot about polio vaccinations either. And I think that this has been a really big step forward in medical science and getting these studies going quicker and with less hiccups than they usually are. If you have any personal questions, please feel free to reach out. I would love to chat with anybody regarding COVID vaccinations, as it's something that's really personal to me, obviously. Hit me up for a more fun, hopefully less controversial topic in the Discord. Thanks, guys.
Whew, that was a long one, but Josh, are you familiar with the anger translator bit from Key and Peele?
No.
Are you really
Enlighten me.
Oh, well, I mean, Jamie is obviously a very eloquent, very well-spoken medical doctor. If I could be her anger translator, though, for that 5.5 minute info session she gave us, I'm sure the anger translation would go something like this. Stop being a fucking stooge and get your vaccine. I think that was the moral of the story if I could assume on Jamie's behalf. I feel pretty confident saying this, Josh. I don't want to speak for you, so please correct me, but I feel pretty confident saying we're a pro-vaccine podcast. Is that correct?
Yeah, we could say that. I don't have mine yet, but that is because I wanted to get the Moderna. I didn't know about the awesome alter name for Pfizer, so that might actually jump the list. And there have not been any Moderna around me for some reason. So I am still not vaccinated, but I am immunized, so don't worry about that. And so, but yeah, no, I'd definitely say that we are, for the vaccine. And honestly, it's not necessarily for me, because the reason I held off at first was because I knew that, they were saying it was limited. So obviously when they opened it up to the general public, I was like, well, I'm fine waiting in line. I've had it already. I'll be that guy that takes the bullet again if I need to. But there were quite a few people like that I talked to as well, and so I do plan on getting it, hopefully in the near future. They tried to sell me on the whole vaccine flu shot combo. Not gonna work, bud. I get the flu shot once every 10 years.
That's I feel very confident if we were to ask Jamie about the flu shots, you would tell you get your flu shot every year. So I don't know how loudly I'd be saying that when Dr. Jamie Hammer can listen. But yeah, I mean,
well, I did once. I got it up at work. They had free flu shots on the 3rd floor, so I went up there, got my flu shot. No cookies put out, so obviously negative right to start. And then I get the flu shot. 40 minutes later, hour, 2 hours later, I'm sitting there with the biggest headache ever. Sure, could have been because I was working and I didn't want to, but I got a headache. I'll wait every 10 years. I feel like it's in my system long time.
Okay. Yeah. So we're pro-vaccine pod. For all the fear-mongering out there that I don't even understand why it really exists, but for all the fear-mongering about the vaccine, the side effects of the alternative treatments and the side effects of COVID itself are worse than the vaccine. So get the fucking vaccine. I don't understand why we still have to talk about this. And the whole Johnson & Johnson blood clotting thing, that was in birthing age of women. It was women under 50 it was happening to. It was 7 in a million. So
Well,
anyways, that'll really affect Rogers.
Did you just assume his gender guard? It's 2021. You can't do things like that.
Yeah, right. Josh, we're fucking moving on. Get your vaccine. Fave Favre, favorite 90s technology. We'll go ahead and we'll jump right fucking into it because obviously it's been a longer medical minute. We checked in on the league. But yeah, welcome to the Fave Favre. We want to hear about people's favorite 90s technology. We have to give Willie, a.k.a. Al, Audio Al, the walk-off shot this week because this was his suggested topic. And so we're going to hear from Walters first. Walters, let's hear your Fave Favre 90s tech.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Gar. It's your boy, Walters. Fave Favre, 90s tech. We've got coming in at number 5, the Tamagotchi. Everybody loved the Tamagotchi. If you were in elementary school in the 90s. Number 3, the Super Nintendo. Number 2, the PlayStation, which was superior to the N64 in many, many ways. And number 1 of my Fave Favre 90s tech, the dial-up modem. Bye.
So obviously Walters was doing a bit of a bit there with it silently, but Jesse, I have the general chat pulled up, and Jesse went with the speed it up, pal. Sorry, Walters, that was a good list. Obviously, you're doing a bit. The bit, I appreciate the bit. Not when we're in more of a rush on the podcast, but there's no way you could have known. Jesse, thank you for breaking the monotony with us. Speed it up, pal. Oh boy. So yeah, I don't even remember exactly what was on his list. I believe he said the Game Boy was better than the Nintendo 64. That's a hot take.
No, he said the Super Nintendo.
Oh, well, I mean, that's even hotter take. I can't.
Or the Sega Genesis. I don't even remember.
I can't condone that.
I was too focused on Jesse. Yeah.
No, but sincerely though, thank you, Walters, for calling in. Let's hear from Brian next. Brian was about 80 years old in the 90s. Let's hear his favorite 90s tech.
The Switch.
Hi, this is Brian with my Fave Favre for the week. 90s technology. And Gar, I even asked for clarification, and it said 90s technology. So here you go. From the 1690s, the first steam engine was invented. From the 1790s, the smallpox vaccination. From the 1890s, the radio was invented. And from the 1990s, which I know is what you were going for. A lot to choose from, and I'm going to choose the World Wide Web for technologies from the 90s. That's my list.
Whew. I appreciate.
So I just want to point out, like, technology. I guess we didn't. I mean, technology is that, tech. It's electronics. And I think he went with inventions in his mind, but did he just actually admit that when the
technology is not electronics, Josh? That's easy, pal. Technology is the wheel technology. I mean, is a lever, is a pulley system technology? I'd say it is. I think you're wrong.
It's electric now.
Josh. But yeah, I mean, that's Brian. That's why we leave it vague on purpose, is for jokes like that. The 90s technology, the subject topic, is open to your interpretation. The steam engine, obviously, I love the steam engine. Without the steam engine, where would Thomas the Tank Engine be?
The trash.
How fucking dare you? He would not be in the scrapyard.
He'd probably be a diesel then.
Josh, we got to keep moving. We've only got 10 minutes left, and we still got another fan. Then we've got our 4 list. Then we've got the outro. We got to keep moving. Thank you so much for calling in, Brian. We're in a rush today. But Al, this should be a good one. This was your topic. I'm expecting you to bring it home. We gave you the fan walk-off shot. Let's hear Al's Fave Favre 90s tech.
This is Al with the Fave car of 90s technology. First honorable mentions, just because they missed it by 1 year, Razor scooters and Heelys. If you had Heelys, I'm still jealous to this day. Number car, we'll go with Pokemon, just out of respect. Number 3, we'll go, when you go to Perkins in the 90s, you could play a Game Gear. So Game Gear is number 3 for me. Made going to Perkins 20 times better. Number 2, we'll go with the Nerf football, but I'm talking about the specific one where it was basically half a football, so one half was flat, so you could throw it against the wall and it would come back, for those of you who don't have friends like me. And then number 1, we'll go with America Online. It's just, it was a pioneer of the interwebs, and, had the iconic "You Got Mail" and the iconic connection sound. Let's do it with me.
Oh,
You've got mail.
Shout out to Al. Shout out to America Online. Al did not disappoint with his fave Favre, his fave car, as he put it, with his submission. Thank you so much for calling in, Al. We got to keep her moving, Josh. I'm gonna take the walk-off shot this week because I fucking want it. So let's go. Let's hear your honorable mentions and your number 5. We gotta fly, Josh.
So honorable mentions. I had internet. I guess that was on everybody's list so far.
The internet was not invented in the 90s. Let's be clear. Maybe the World Wide Web, which is different than the internet. I'll subscribe to what Brian was saying. The internet was not invented in the 90s, Josh.
Yeah. So the internet was on my honorable mentions. Sega Genesis, the Sega Game Gear, as Al mentioned, Tamagotchi, the Yak Back. I don't know if you know what that is. But those all made my honorable mentions. As far as my process, I definitely gave it away. I went with technology that, was more electronic technology. I feel like my small brain doesn't comprehend technology as, useful items. So I'm a dum-dum, and I apparently am dumb. Gar, do you have any honorable mentions?
My honorable mentions, I got the Furby. I had a black Furby. It was awesome and demented. Crazy Bones were fucking sweet as shit. The slap bracelet, Josh, invented in 1990 in Wisconsin, of all places. Slap bracelets were fucking cool. The PlayStation original, PS1 as it's known today, and the Game Boy Color rule, my honorable mentions.
All right, so my fave Favre, number 5 on my list, was the George Foreman grill, made in 1994, and it really turned everybody on their head. We got grease trays. We got the ability to have a dinner cooked by none other than George Foreman, heavyweight boxer himself. That was one of the inventions that I used long into my college career because you just toss a couple turkey patties on there, then you take the grease. Put the grease in your protein shake for some extra fats, and then you eat the patties. But yeah, coming in at number 5, George Foreman Grill.
Josh, you don't understand what "we got to fly" means. My number 5, I got the iMac, Josh. We're sitting there, we're going into the computer lab in Madison Elementary. You're sitting there going to play some Oregon Trail. You're going to play some of those math games where you could, I don't know. I remember one game specifically, you were vacuuming dust mites or whatever. That shit was the coolest. The iMac was a great 90s tech that I loved. Shout out to Madison Elementary and Mrs. Kirkman. That's my number 5, the iMac. Josh, your number 3.
Number 3, we've got the Game Boy Color. Came out in 1998. I remember being a young boy going to my grandparents' house for Christmas, and all of my cousins and I got the Game Boy Color. It was a great time. Got to play some Pokemon. Got to play some other games, and loved it. Gar, what do you have for number 3?
My number 3, I never owned one, but this is a shout out to the Knupp family and the Knupp household. I know Bradley had one of these. I don't know if Sharon had it or if Bradley had it. I played with it at Sharon's mostly, but my number 3 is the fucking Bop It. Bop Its were the fucking coolest. It was a cool game. You could twist it, you could bop it. Then they came out with other ones, different iterations over the years, but the original Bop It was fucking sweet as shit. Batteries not included, but it was one of my favorite toys. I would consider technology. The Bop It's my number 3.
Very nice, Gar. Very nice. Number 2, I had one. I'm not sure if anybody else had one because I didn't pay attention because who's that kind of creep. But I had the Time Blaster Alarm by Nickelodeon. Came out in 1995. It had the green little spiral thing that looks like an EKG monitor. Had the red button, and then had the switch that you do the AM, FM. You had the different options. I had that bad boy well into my high school years, just because I was poor and stuck in my ways and not want to buy a new alarm clock. But yeah, the Nickelodeon Time Blaster Alarm.
All right, I love it, Josh. My number 2, I mean, if this is your number 1, I'd be shocked, but my number 2, the Nintendo 64. I believe it hit North America in 96 or 98, either way. I mean, we still were playing this thing up until, probably 2019 is the last time we actually touched it because of COVID and all this and that, maybe early 2020, but the Nintendo 64, I had one as a kid. Mario Party 2 was my jam. Mario, was it just Mario 64? Mario World 64? I don't even remember the exact title, but that game was fucking baller as shit. The Nintendo 64 has provided me a lifetime of fun. So Nintendo 64 had to make my Fave Favre 90s list. That's my number 2, Josh. Your number 1?
Yeah, you called it. The N64, and it was officially released in the Americas in 1996, was my number 1. Walters, you are a junior correspondent for a reason, so please do not fill our chat with nonsense such as PlayStation being greater than N64, because I have not touched a PlayStation 1 since they became a thing. I, like Garlic said, have played the Nintendo 64 in my late 20s. Mario Party is still the go-to jam. If they had some sort of Nintendo technology where we could play remotely with each other a Mario Party game, I'd be on board for having someone buy me that. But at this point in time, yeah, Nintendo 64 is the number 1 thing to come out of the 90s as far as a technology item goes.
It's not the number 1. I will say I owned a PlayStation and a Nintendo 64. I had divorced parents when I was really young, so I had 2 Christmases, and they were just showering me in gifts so I could give them my love, and I never gave it to either of them. Joke's on them. But I had both, the PlayStation and the Nintendo 64. You'll notice PlayStation didn't even make my list, and Nintendo 64 was my number 2, Walter, so that's how fucking wrong you are. My number 1, though, Josh, number 1 technology out of the 90s, it could not be the Nintendo 64, because I know you were thinking electronics, you were thinking tech, but this is the single greatest technology to come out of the 90s, and I think you might concede to me, maybe not, because I know the N64 means a lot to you, but you might concede to me after you hear my number 1, Josh. My number 1 Fave Favre 90s tech has to be the Super Soaker, one of the greatest creations ever invented, ever. We're coming from the 90s or not, but the Super Soaker, when you were a kid and you had a fucking badass water gun, you felt like the fucking king of the world. I know you went to Sharon's daycare just as much as I did. She had that fucking the largest water gun you've ever seen in your life hanging in her garage. We almost never got to use it, but I know, Josh, if you were anything like me, you would fucking gawk at that Super Soaker hanging on Sharon's garage wall all the time, and you're like, I want to fucking use that. The Super Soaker is easily the greatest 90s tech to ever exist, and shout out to the guy who invented it. I didn't write down his name, I ran out of time, but the Super Soaker, my number 1 90s tech. Josh, do you concede or do you hold the N64?
I hold the N64. The Super Soaker is up there. He might, or it might, make my honorable mentions. It might make everything, it would make my honorable mentions for sure. I don't think it would make my Fave Favre, mostly because for some reason, I always had that. I always thought I had a decent one. I had that big honker that you needed the strap for. It had the purple tank that was literally a 2-liter bottle that you fill up. I had that thing, but nobody else wanted to play when I used it, so I never got to really play Super Soakers with anybody. And then I got shot by James Sable and what's his brother's name? I don't know. They were up the hill kids, lived kind of behind Sharon's. You know who I'm talking about?
Sure, Josh. I mean, I appreciate your story time, but what part of We Gotta Fly sounds like let's tell a fucking long-ass story about Super Soakers, huh? We gotta get out of here.
Well, I just asked you a question, now you're extending it for no reason, but yeah, fine. The Super Soaker, the reason it doesn't make my Fave Favre, the reason it doesn't make my Fave Favre is because those two brothers peed in their Super Soakers and shot me as a kid. So no, I don't like the Super Soaker because it contained piss.
Oh, Brian, get ready to write this down. We've only got about 20 seconds before I have to play the music. Brian, the topic next week, and everyone else listening, the topic next week with the Fave Favre is books. I'm not going to clarify it any further than that, Brian. You can pick a fucking phone book if you want. I can't. I'm crying right now. The Fave Favre topic next week is books. Jesse, call in with the fucking you're listening to us on this, the Hidden Oaks Overdose, so you can get 4 more raffle entries. We don't have any final words. Join the Discord, anchor.fm/hoodpod, hiddenoaksoverdose@gmail.com, hiddenoaksoverdose.com. We got to go. Bye.
I have a full minute
Hey guys,
left to
this
tell
is Dr.
Alex
Jamie
that
Hammer with the most controversial episode
Fuck,
of
and then I played
Josh's
the wrong
Beckham
audio
thoughts.
tape.
Yeah, you're awful, but
Yeah, well,
my
you can
Beckham
talk while the
thoughts,
music's
Al,
playing.
I don't have any thoughts. I don't want him on the Packers. If he were to join the Packers, I really hope that he learns to run his routes properly because this offense is based on timing. And so my thoughts right now are please don't come to Green Bay. Please go to Detroit. Thank you. Goodbye.
Oh, God. You think we could manage our time better and just end without having to rush? Because we've been rushing the past however many weeks. Oh, boy. Josh,
Greg, leave.
you made me cry at the fucking end. That was hilarious. I fucking love that. See, that's pod content you're not going to find in any of their podcasts. No offense to Walters or Al, but that's a Hidden Oaks original right there. Whew.
Yeah, I will say offense to Walters and Al. Just because I got to experience some offense when they're cheering for the Vikings. I don't know. It's past 6, so my official joke's